right, so most manufacturers will recommend in their manuals that you have 12 to 18 inches between the top of your risers and your deployment bag that is unstowed. Reason for this being, you want this to actually get away from the back of your body where your burble is before lines start coming out, because you don't want lines starting to come out in the back of your burble. This can dance around in your burble and twist up. So you want to have a little bit of slack. This way it gets up above your body before lines start unstowing, okay? So just think 18 to 21 inches. You can always do like an arm, fingertips to elbow. It should always be a little bit longer than that. And I always say, if you have to decide between doing one more stow or doing more slack, try to err on the side of more slack, okay? So at this point, we're gonna take our whole deployment bag, we're gonna lift it up, and we are gonna set it down just like that, okay? Your bridle, this is your last chance. If you forgot to cock it, you can check your pilot chute, make sure it's catching air and that it's not a limp little napkin. Now we wanna focus on putting our risers in untwisted. So again, you want the rig to look like it would if it was sitting on your shoulders. Don't let this freak you out. Start here at your 3-ring and start by thinking about making sure the risers are not twisted, okay? So from my 3-ring, my risers are not twisted, okay? They're lying flat. I'm gonna pull them over where my shoulder would be. I'm gonna open up the side and I'm gonna put in my toggle side first, okay? And then my front riser on top of it, just like this. Don't worry about this, it looks scary, but we're worrying about our risers right now. So from the 3-ring, all the way back, no twists, and I've actually kind of scissored them so they're not laying one on top of the other like so, because this is thick, and when you're trying to close that, it's just gonna make your rig wider. Kind of scissor them like that, front riser in front of the rear riser. Now you can, if you have magnets or whatever you have for your riser cover, tuck it in and do the same thing on the other side. So I'm gonna do that more quickly. All right, so remember, I told you not to be scared of this. It's still not scary looking. We're gonna keep following down from the risers, making sure that there's no twists and tangles, okay? So now I'm gonna lift up my deployment bag again, okay? And from my deployment bag, I'm gonna make sure the lines from the risers don't have any twists or tangles in them, right? See how easily that was fixed? It's not scary at all. Right? Now I have everything is about even and there's no crazy tangles, okay? This is where you want to picture laying it in the bag as if there's one more stow, okay? So first you want to take this top cover, move it aside. I usually hold it with my knee, okay? And picture if you were to make a stow, which direction it would go in. So I'm just gonna kind of lay that down and see how it's gonna naturally bend as if it's going right and left. Just plop that in there like that, okay? So lines are facing down and towards the bottom of your bag. Some manufacturers will recommend putting it straight down like this. Others will recommend a 45. My bag fits better if I do it more at a 45. All right, next step is the closing the flaps. You can check, every container has a manual that you can look up online and it will give you the directions for closing. Mine is bottom, top, right, left. So I'm gonna start with the bottom, putting my pull-up cord through the closing loop. This is your chance to look at your closing loop. Make sure there's not a lot of wear on it. It's really cheap to replace these. It's really easy to replace these. This is the point you want to figure out if it needs to be changed, not as you're about to close the rig, okay? So, I'm gonna take the pull-up cord, thread it through the top, and I'm gonna make sure my bridle is coming up and to the right side, because that's what my manufacturer for my container says that I should do for my bridle. Now I'm gonna take everything and This is all like body strength, however you want to do it. I have to put my feet on the rig in order to get enough strength to pull this. Some people can just pull straight up and get, basically you want the closing loop to come through both grommets, okay? Now, in order to keep that from going back down, you want to put a knee on it, and I don't put my knee right on the grommet, I put it usually on the closing loop. Now, I can take my other two hands and I thread it through, okay? And this is where, if I started pulling this tight and I didn't do anything with this corner, it's gonna wanna squish up out of the top. So as I pull this right side, I'm gonna actually kind of help guide the rest of my bag, or the rest of my deployment bag, into the container, okay? And also my bridle, because my bridle is a super long bridle, I actually tuck a little bit in at this point. Again, all of this is manufacturer recommendations. You can always find your manufacturer's recommendations online. It's available to the public. All right, last flap. Again, through the grommet. And I have to make sure that I'm not gonna just leave that corner out as I pull this across. For those of you who don't have a lot of upper body strength, this last grommet might be tough. Try not to pull up. That's not going to do anything. You want to be tensioning the closing loop, kind of pulling away from your body. You might even have to tip the rig on its side and use like your full body weight to get the loop to come out all the way, okay? If you have too easy of a time getting this out, it means your closing loop is too long, okay? So if I could get this out even more, I would say it's getting on the long side. Take your pin, pop it in, and at this point, there's a lot of questions about which direction your pin should be facing. A lot of us learned in AFF that your pin needs to be a smiley, but I want to show you something. What's most important is the attachment point to the pin, and that is not pinned underneath the head. For example, if I had it like so, and that attachment point is pinned under the head, when I pull it, see how my pin wants to rotate? That is what we're trying to avoid. We want this to never feel like it has to rotate the pin in order to be pulled free. So I'm going to show you another circumstance where that might happen. Maybe if it was like this, right? And your pin maybe isn't in a frowny or a smiley, but when this is pulled, it's going to want to rotate the pin. So you just got to think about when your pin is lying down, and a smiley is usually the best because it's already coming from the right side, that attachment point isn't folded under, okay? So that's a nice looking pin, and you want it to be pushed down so it's not sitting on the neck of the pin, but so there's the majority of the pin is on outside of the closing loop. You don't want it to be so close like this that it would be easy for it to get nudged and popped out of the container. Now, again, to preserve the life of your closing loop, you want to flip the pin and pull the pull-up cord so it's underneath the metal. This way, when you remove the pull-up cord, you are not putting a lot of friction on that closing loop, okay? You can pull that out slowly, because if you rip it out quickly, that friction and that heat is going to damage your closing loop, okay? This closing loop has also probably had like 200 jumps on it, and it looks almost new, and that's because I try to take care of it when I pull it out. All right, next up, stowing the bridle.